Today, I'm going to show you how to differentiate gradebooks, which will allow you to set up your gradebook so that different students, or maybe one student, will get a different assignment in the gradebook from everyone else. And their individual progress reports or family access will show only the assignments that pertain to them. This might be useful if you have a class with mixed grade levels, or you want to separate some assignments that have been differentiated for accommodations, like on an IEP, or maybe students whose families have opted them out of a unit, or maybe you have students completing special projects that you want to put into the gradebook, but you don't want that project to appear in the gradebook for other students. This is one way to do that. So to get started, you'll need to sign into the grade sheet for the class that you want to differentiate. And in the top right, click on the settings gear icon. And after you select that, on the left, you'll see an option for student groups. Go ahead and select that, and then you will have the screen here where you can manage the student groups. And you can see in my example, I do not yet have any student groups listed, but on the far right, you can see the option to add a student group. Once you do that, you'll be brought to this screen where you can name the group and choose a color associated with that group, and then select any other classes that you might want to also have these groups available for scoring. Once you have selected the classes that you will also sync these groups to, you can click Save and add another group. Or if you have been doing this already and there are a few groups in there, then you can click Save and Add Students. When you click Save and Add Students, it will bring you to this screen where you can select the students that are going to be put into this particular group. I have the names of my students blocked out here just for their privacy. But once you select the students that will be in this group, you'll click Save at the top, and then you'll get a confirmation here. You can see that I have included 5 students in this particular group, and it completed successfully. So then I can click Close, and it'll bring me back to this screen. And you can see now that I've done this a couple times. I added 3 different groups. And if you want to go to a group like I have selected here, you can see under the column labeled student count, there's a 0 there. I don't have any students in that group. So in the bottom right, I can click that option to select students to add, and that'll bring me back to the previous screen. The name of the group is listed at the top there, so you can verify where you're at in this process and which students should belong to this particular group by selecting them as you did before. On the far right, you can see that some of these students have been assigned to other groups, and I think this is a really useful function for using student groups, is that an individual student can belong to more than one group. So you will need to just add them as necessary, and then click Save. Once you have added all of your groups, you can click on each one of them, and then at the bottom, it will list the students that belong to that particular group. They'll be listed underneath the bottom half of this screen. And as before, I've blocked out the names of my students, so there's just a gray box. But on yours, you will see actual names of students. For additional options, you can click the circle with the arrow in it, and that'll bring you to the settings for this group, where you can change the name or change the color. You can also select some of the options on the left if you want to see which other classes this group is synced to, the students that are in this group, and any assignments that you have assigned to this specific group. When you go back to the list of groups, you can click the down arrow if there's a group you want to delete or deactivate. So now the hard part is done. Our groups are set up. When you go to add an assignment, you have the regular assignment screen that you would always see, where you can enter the due date and the category and the assignment name. But at the bottom, you'll see where it says assigned to all students. The default will always be, every time you enter an assignment, it will go to every student in that class. But then if you choose student groups, a new option is available. And you can click on the magnifying glass for that field, and it will pull up the groups that you have. Now, this is an example from my live gradebook, and I was teaching Shakespeare's Macbeth. And I did have two students whose families opted them out of that entire unit. As an alternative text, they read Julius Caesar. So I set up a group with just those two students in it. And now, when I enter an assignment, if it was something that would go to the majority of students who are reading Macbeth, I would click that, what I labeled standard. And if it's an assignment for Julius Caesar, I would just click Caesar and it would go to only those two students. In the gradebook, it would look something like this, where I have those two red boxes. You can see that there is an assignment labeled Julius Caesar on the left and one labeled for Macbeth on the right. And as you look down the column, you can see a series of asterisks. There's only two scores entered for the Julius Caesar assignment because it obviously pertains to just the students in that group. And those are these particular students here. And you can see that underneath those two students, there are two pink boxes, and that's the color that I chose for the Julius Caesar group. The rest of the class, I chose just this green color, so you have a visual of which students belong to which groups. When you enter the scoring mode on your grade sheet, which just turns it into like an active spreadsheet to type in scores, you can see all of these boxes have now been activated for you to type in. You'll notice that the boxes for entering scores do not appear for every assignment for every student. So this is one way to confirm that it is working as it should. You can see again for the Julius Caesar assignments, there's a bunch of asterisks for the rest of the class. And for this particular student, I can enter scores along the way that I've got highlighted in red here. But there's a couple assignments that relate to Macbeth that I don't have the option to enter scores for because that assignment was separated out. If you look at the family access or a progress report for the student who was assigned to just the Julius Caesar group, you'll see all of these assignments are listed here for the various Julius Caesar assignments, but none of the Macbeth ones do, at least none of the Macbeth assignments that were given to the class after the student opted out. And then similarly, here is the progress reports, or this was actually a snapshot from Family Access from another student who was reading Macbeth. And you'll see none of those Julius Caesar assignments show up in this student's gradebook. So this really eliminates a lot of the confusion that might come if you are to enter an assignment in the gradebook for everybody, but it only applies to certain students. It separates everything out. It makes communication with the student and the families much clearer. And in the end, it's actually easier for you to manage and navigate when you do have students that need to be separated out, but they're in the same grade book. So I want to thank you for following along. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help.